Captain Mara Hayes stood on the observation deck of the patrol ship Sentinel, her eyes fixed on the vast swirls of violet and teal gas that drifted across the Dortan Nebula. She felt the gentle hum of the engines beneath her boots and the soft pulse of the ship's shields as they held back the nebula's charged particles. Every man and woman under her command knew how fragile the peace between humanity and the HFY Empire had become. Rumors of reprisals and secret weapon tests flitted through the fleet like sparks in a dry forest. Mara wore her uniform with pride, but her heart felt heavy with worry. The nebula's mists glowed through the deck's reinforced glass, painting everything in shifting light. Consoles at her side blinked green and yellow, showing stable power levels and sensor readings. The air smelled faintly of coolant and recycled oxygen. Below decks, her crew moved with quiet purpose, checking weapons, tuning scanners, and clearing data from the last patrol. A soft chime sounded at Mara's elbow, and she turned to see Lieutenant Park gesturing toward the main sensor display. "Captain," Park said, voice low. "I'm picking up a large energy signature. It's moving fast on an intercept course." Mara tapped her comm badge. "All hands prepare for potential contact. Shields to defensive posture. Weapons hot but uncoupled. Maintain non-aggressive stance unless ordered otherwise." She glanced back at Park. "Show me." On the holoscreen, a shape coalesced. A sleek, elongated hull with crystal-laced plating that shimmered under the nebula's glow. It was easily twice the size of any known HFY cruiser. A hush fell over the deck. Even Park, who had seen more battles than he liked to admit, looked stunned. "The royal flagship," he whispered. "Princess Cyril's personal vessel." Mara's pulse quickened. Tales of Princess Cyril carried through human space like a warning. She was said to be the most beautiful being in the galaxy, with skin like moonlight and eyes that could see into a soldier's soul. Yet those same legends spoke of her devouring enemies, of collapsing entire minds, leaving victims as hollow husks, their wills broken forever. None who faced her in psychic combat ever lived to speak of it. The hatch to the observation deck slid open, and Admiral Roddick strode in with measured steps. He was a tall man with silver hair and a lined face that spoke of years under starry skies. He stopped beside Mara and looked out at the flagship. "This is delicate," he said. "We've skirted open war so far. Our alliance with the HFY Empire could crumble if we misstep." Mara nodded. "Acknowledged, sir. I'll handle the first contact." Roddick placed a hand on her shoulder. "You carry the hopes of millions. Keep a clear head." Back at the command console, Mara keyed a secure comm channel. "Sentinel to HFY flagship," she intoned. "This is Captain Mara Hayes of the United Earth Fleet. We request permission to approach." Seconds ticked by. On the bridge, every crew member held their breath. Finally, a voice as soft as silk replied, "Permission granted. Docking bay coordinates have been transmitted. One human envoy only." Mara felt a chill. A single envoy meant she must go alone. No backup, no shielded escort. If the princess wished to test her, there would be no shield wall between them. Moments later, Mara stood on the connecting gangway, the gap between ships seeming to stretch into eternity. Below her, the nebula's glow filtered through transparent panels in the bay floor. She could hear the distant hiss of life support from the flagship, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and nitrogen, a different blend from the Sentinel's recycled atmosphere. At the far end of the gangway, the bay doors of the HFY flagship opened with a smooth hiss. A wash of warm light spilled onto the walkway. There at the threshold stood Princess Cyril. She wore a gown of liquid crystal that rippled like water caught in sunlight. Her hair fell in silken waves around her shoulders. The princess's eyes, dark and endless, met Mara's without a flicker of surprise. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. "Welcome, Captain Hayes," Cyril said, her voice a melody of distant stars. "I have been expecting you." Mara's breath caught. She fought to keep her posture steady, at once drawn to Cyril's grace and repelled by the cold promise behind those eyes. The stories flooded back. The way Cyril had bent entire fleets to her will, the mental ruins she left in the wake of her triumphs. Yet here, in this silent docking bay, Mara sensed something more. A quiet sadness, a cautious hope. The princess tilted her head. Come, there's much to discuss, and I wish to understand why humanity clings to peace. Mara's mind swirled with fear and determination. She remembered Admiral Roddick's words, keep a clear head. She squared her shoulders and stepped forward. I am here to ensure that peace holds, Mara replied, for both our peoples. As the bay doors slid closed behind them, Mara took a deep breath. The path before her was uncertain and her fear was real. But she knew that one brave step could change everything, and she would make that step. Captain Mara Hayes followed Princess Cyril down a long corridor bathed in soft violet light. The walls pulsed gently, as if the ship itself breathed. Mara kept her hand close to her sidearm, though she doubted she would ever draw it. Every step she took echoed softly on the polished floor, and the hum of distant engines seemed a world away. They entered a vast chamber framed by towering crystal pillars that glowed like embers in a dying fire. Between the pillars hung drapes of living fabric, threads of shimmering bioluminescence that shifted in color from pale blue to lavender. The room smelled faintly of jasmine and ozone, a perfume both alien and strangely comforting. At the center stood a low table carved from dark stone, its surface etched with swirling patterns that glowed in rhythm with the crystals. Cyril gestured to two low seats draped with plush cushions embroidered in silver thread. Please sit, Captain, she said, her voice as calm as the calmest ocean. Mara lowered herself onto one cushion, keeping her back straight. She reached the table and noticed a delicate teapot made of glass and glowing liquid. Two cups rested beside it, shaped like lotus petals. Cyril poured the liquid, which shimmered like liquid starlight, into both cups. As Mara lifted the cup to her lips, she felt a gentle warmth spread through her fingers. The tea tasted of sweet petals and cool mint, and for a moment she forgot where she was. The princess watched her with an unreadable expression. After a polite sip, Mara set the cup down. Your ship is remarkable, she began. I have never seen architecture like this. Cyril smiled, though her eyes remained distant. The HFY believe that our surroundings must reflect our inner selves. Here we blend beauty with purpose. Tell me, Captain, why does humanity cling to machines of war? Mara's heart thumped. She had expected direct questions about treaties, not about human nature. She chose her words with care. We build weapons to protect what we love. Sometimes we fear what we cannot control. Princess Cyril leaned forward. Fear is a powerful guide, but it can also blind us to possibility. She reached out, her slender fingers tracing a path along the table's edge. Mara wondered if her touch was more than simple movement, that perhaps Cyril probed minds even through the air. A sudden chill darted down Mara's spine. She felt as if thousands of eyes watched her. She had trained for surprise attacks, but this was different. This was a quiet invasion of thought. Mara met Cyril's gaze. I serve to keep peace, she said firmly, not to conquer. Cyril's lips curved into a small, amused smile. She laid her hand lightly on the table, and the glow in the room brightened, as if responding to her will. Peace is a fragile flower. It must be nurtured carefully or it withers. Mara relaxed her grip on the cup. Then let us nurture it, Princess. Show me how the HFY see peace. Cyril rose and moved to a nearby console embedded in a crystal wall. She tapped a few controls and the room darkened. Above them, the ceiling transformed into a window to the stars, and a soft hum filled the chamber. A holographic display unfolded between the pillars, showing worlds bound by glowing threads. Behold the unity web, Cyril said. These lines represent alliances. They are fragile. Break one and the whole network trembles. Mara stepped closer, studying the display. She recognized human colonies, HFY sectors, and others she could not name. A sudden flare on one human line caught her eye. It pulsed red, then blinked out. Cyril's gaze followed Mara's. One of your frontier colonies. It fell 2 cycles ago. No distress call reached you in time. Her voice was sorrowful, not cruel. Mara felt a sudden weight in her chest. "We were stretched thin," she admitted. "Many lives were lost." Cyril touched the spot where the line had disappeared. The hologram shimmered and the fallen colony reappeared in pale blue. "Here, Captain, we can restore hope as easily as we create beauty." Mara's eyes widened. "You can rebuild with a thought?" The princess nodded. "Not with a thought, but with collective will. We share memories, knowledge, energy. Together we grow stronger." Mara considered this. Humanity rebuilt from ashes many times, after wars, after disasters. But it always took years of hard work. If the Avray could offer a swifter path, perhaps distrust could give way to trust. A gentle breeze wafted through the chamber, though there was no open window. Cyril returned to her seat and watched Mara closely. "Now, tell me your true feelings, Captain. What do you fear most in this alliance?" Mara felt the room tighten around her. She realized Cyril did not only listen with ears but also with the mind. She took a deep breath. "I fear losing our identity. I fear that in reaching for peace, we might give up what makes us human." For a moment, Cyril was silent. Then she stood and crossed the room in a few gliding steps. She extended her hand, brushing a strand of hair from Mara's face. The touch was so soft it barely registered. But in that instant, Mara felt an echo in her mind, an image of a small village on Earth, children playing under olive trees. Mara's breath caught. The princess's finger hovered over her spine, and Mara felt her own memories mingle with faint hints of Cyril's. The sensation was both thrilling and terrifying. Cyril withdrew her hand and smiled warmly. "You have a strong heart, Mara Hayes. You value your people and you will protect them. That makes you an excellent envoy." Mara fought to steady herself. Her pulse raced and she wiped her palms on her uniform. "Thank you, Princess." As the living drapes shifted color, Mara knew she stood at a crossroads. The princess had opened a window into her mind, and now she had seen a glimpse of the princess's own soul. What lay beyond this invitation in velvet shadows was still unknown. But Mara realized that whatever happened next, she would not be simply a soldier. She would be a bridge between two worlds, and the fate of both might rest on her next words. Princess Cyril led Captain Mara Hayes through a low, arched doorway into the mindscape chamber. The air shimmered with soft violet light, and the walls seemed to breathe, pulsing in time with distant heartbeats. At the center of the room stood an oval platform carved from a single piece of pale crystal. Tendrils of mist curled around its edges, and ambient hums filled the space with an alien music. Mara stepped onto the platform, feeling the mist swirl around her boots. She glanced back at Cyril, who stood just outside the mist's edge. The young princess's dark eyes reflected both curiosity and patience. "Here," Cyril said softly, "our thoughts become real. You may walk your memories, face your fears, and learn truths you never knew." Mara inhaled deeply. She had trained for psychic interference, but nothing prepared her for this. With a steady step, she ventured into the crystal mist. The air grew thick and cool, and soon the chamber faded away. She found herself in a world of shadow and light, the shifting corridors of her own memories. First came the roar of distant explosions. The ground trembled beneath her feet as she walked. A battlefield scarred by fire, she recognized the blasted hull of a transport ship, her own command vessel lost in a skirmish 3 cycles ago. Smoke curled upward, and the cries of wounded soldiers echoed in her mind. She forced herself forward, heart pounding. As she turned, a scorched corner, the mist solidified into the figure of Lieutenant Park. He knelt in the ashes, his face pale and drawn. "Captain," he whispered, voice trembling, "you left me behind." Park's eyes brimmed with sorrow. Mara's throat tightened. She remembered the moment she had ordered the retreat, leaving some of her team to slow the enemy. Before she could answer, Park's form blurred and shifted. In his place stood Corporal Nguyen, staring at Mara with hollow eyes. "We trusted you," he said, voice hollow. You chose your life over ours. The memory stabbed at Mara's heart. She had done what the mission demanded, but the cost had never left her. Nguyen's image dissolved into a swirl of mist. Around her, dozens of phantom voices rose in accusation. Each fallen soldier she led haunted the chamber, their faces twisted by betrayal. Fear, guilt, and regret flooded Mara's mind. She stumbled backward, nearly falling, as the mist pressed in around her, cold and suffocating. A soft sound cut through the chorus of ghosts, a gentle, melodic note that felt like sunlight. On chilled skin, Mara looked up to see Princess Cyril standing at the edge of the mist. She raised a crystal pendant that glowed with pale blue light. The ghosts paused, their mouths open in silent cries. Cyril stepped onto the platform, her gown of liquid crystal, rippling like water. She placed one hand on the pendant and closed her eyes. The mist stilled and the voices faded. The battlefield and the ghosts vanished, replaced by a quiet glade bathed in moonlight. Silver leaves drifted around them, and the soft scent of night flowers filled the air. Mara's chest heaved. She met Cyril's gaze. "I saw them," she whispered. "My team. All of them." Her voice trembled. "I carry their loss with me every day." Cyril nodded. "The mindscape shows us what we hide. Guilt and grief can become prisons." She offered Mara a hand. "Will you trust me to guide you back?" Mara hesitated a moment, then placed her hand in Cyril's. A warm glow flowed through her wrist, and the mist parted like curtains. The battlefield faded, and the glade dissolved into the soft violet light of the chamber once more. When the mist cleared, they stood side by side on the crystal platform. Mara felt lighter, as if a burden had lifted. The memories still lingered, but their weight was lessened by Cyril's calm presence. The princess lowered the pendant and smiled gently. "You have strength, Marahayes," Cyril said. "You bear heavy scars, yet you stand tall. That courage will guide both our peoples." Mara offered a small, grateful nod. "Thank you, Princess. You have shown me a kindness I did not expect." Cyril inclined her head. "Compassion is not weakness. It is the greatest power." She stepped back, and the platform's mist faded entirely. The crystal pillars resumed their soft glow, and the chamber's hum returned. Mara wiped a bead of sweat from her brow. She looked around, taking in the beauty of Cyril's ship once more. Though she had faced her deepest fears, she no longer felt broken. Instead, she felt ready to continue, ready to build a fragile peace from shared understanding. As Cyril guided her toward the chamber's exit, Mara felt the bond forming between them. In that silent dance of trust and revelation, both soldier and princess had changed. The next steps of their journey would be brighter for it. Beyond the mindscape chamber, the fate of two worlds awaited, and Marahayes was no longer afraid to face it. Princess Cyril led Captain Marahayes into the royal garden, a hidden space deep within the flagship. Moonlight filtered through crystalline leaves overhead, casting gentle reflections on the smooth stone paths. Strange flowers glowed softly at the edges of the walkways, and a light breeze carried their faint perfume. Mara paused to take in the scene. She had seen many wonders on this ship, but the garden felt like a living dream. Cyril moved beside her in silence at first. Then she spoke with a voice as soft as falling petals. "This is my sanctuary," she said. "Here, I come when I need peace." Mara studied the princess's profile. In that delicate face framed by silvery hair, Mara saw not only royalty but also loneliness. They reached a marble bench carved in the shape of two entwined wings. Cyril sat and gestured for Mara to join her. Mary lowered herself beside the princess, letting the night air cool her skin. They sat close enough that their shoulders almost touched. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Cyril broke the silence. "I envy your people," she began. "You share your hearts with friends and family. You gather in groups, laugh, sing, we avre. We share each other's thoughts and memories in our own way. But it is different. We lose a part of ourselves when we connect." Mara listened, She thought of her home on Earth, of crowded city, streets and loud marketplaces. She remembered family dinners and the comfort of an arm around her shoulder. She realized how much she took these joys for granted. "I cannot imagine sharing thoughts so closely," she said. "You lose privacy." Cyril nodded. "Yes, and I sometimes fear I lose more than privacy. I fear I lose myself." She looked up at the glowing flowers. "I crave connection like you crave air." Her dark eyes shone in the moonlight. "I want someone who sees me and does not run away." Mara felt her heart stir. She reached out and touched Cyril's hand. The princess did not pull away. Instead, she gently closed her fingers around Mara's. In that simple touch, Mara felt a faint echo of warmth and ancient memory, as if Cyril had shared a moment from her own past. Mara's breath caught. Cyril's voice was quiet. "There is a ritual among my people," she said. "A ritual of merging life energies. It is spoken of in whispers, feared by many. It can heal wounds or bind two souls together. But the cost, only one can carry the full bond. The other fades." Mara swallowed. She had heard the rumors, but she had never believed them. She studied Cyril's face, lit by moonlight. "Why tell me this?" she asked. Cyril's gaze held steady. "Because of what happened in the garden of Charon's world," she said. "When famine came, my ancestor merged with her people to save them. She saved them all, but she herself vanished. She was devoured by the ritual." The princess's voice trembled. "That story haunts me." Mara felt a sudden ache. She remembered her own losses, but this was different. Cyril shared a pain that stretched back centuries. Mara tightened her grip on the princess's hand. "You do not age to face it alone," she said. Cyril gave a sad smile. "I know, but I fear that if I merge with someone else, I will see the world only through their eyes. I will lose my duty, my purpose as a leader." She looked straight at Mara. "And yet, I desire the closeness too much to deny it forever." Mara stood and gently helped Cyril to her feet. In the glowing garden, they moved to an ancient stone fountain at the center. Water spilled over carved petals into a shallow pool. Cyril placed both hands on the cool stone rim and looked at her reflection. Then she turned to Mara. "Captain Hayes, would you help me? Not as a soldier, but as a friend." Her voice was a whisper. Mara's hand lingered on Cyril's arm. "Yes," she said. "I will help you." Cyril's dark eyes brightened briefly, then became serious again. "A faction of my people believes this ritual is forbidden. They have rebelled. They plan to capture you and force me to merge against my will. They call themselves the Crystal Spire." Mara's heart pounded. "Where are they now?" Cyril pointed toward a distant walkway. "They make their base in the old spire section. It was sealed centuries ago for their violent history. They can move quickly through the ship's tunnels." Mara's training kicked in. "Then we must act fast. We can warn your guards and stop them." The princess nodded. "Yes, but first I wish to trust you more. Will you come with me into the spire's sealed halls?" Mara met her gaze. "I will go anywhere with you," she promised. They set off together down a narrow, glowing archway that led to the old spire. Each step echoed with purpose. In that moment, soldier and princess stood not as enemies, but as companions bound by hope and fear. Ahead lay danger and a choice that could bind them forever. But neither would falter, and in the silent garden, the moonlight faded as they crossed into shadow. Captain Mara Hayes and Princess Cyril moved swiftly through the narrow corridors of the sealed spire. The walls here were older, carved from pale crystal and etched with ancient runes that glowed faintly beneath their feet. Each step echoed, and the air felt colder, as if the spire itself watched them. Cyril paused at a junction, where 3 tunnels met. She held up a slender hand, her eyes luminous in the dim light. "The Crystal Spire rebels guard the eastern wing," she whispered. "Their leader, Lord Tavix, believes your capture will force my hand." Mara nodded. She placed a reassuring hand on Cyril's shoulder. We'll stop them before they strike. They rounded the corner into a wide chamber with vaulted ceilings. Moon-white crystals jutted from the walls like frozen stalagmites. Ahead, torches burned with pale blue flame, and a line of rebel soldiers stood watch. Mara drew her sidearm, but Cyril lifted a hand and whispered an HFY phrase. The crystals hummed, and the torches dimmed. Shadows swallowed the rebels' forms. Mara signaled Cyril, and they darted forward. The first rebel turned, surprise frozen on his face as Mara disabled him with a swift strike to the wrist, tapping away his weapon. Cyril moved beside her, strands of her silvery hair swirling as she reached out. The crystal walls resonated with her touch, sending a ripple of force that knocked 2 rebels off their feet. The rest of the rebels scrambled, shouting alarm. Mara fired a non-lethal stun round that crackled through the air and struck a soldier's armored shoulder. He collapsed, twitching. Cyril's voice rose in a clear chant, and the crystals along the walls glowed brighter, forming a web of shimmering light that bound the rebels' limbs. They struggled, but the energy held them fast. Lord Tavix emerged from a side alcove cloaked in dark robes. His tall frame blocked the chamber's exit. "Princess," he said, voice cold, "you should have joined us." He raised his hand, and the crystals in the floor began to shift, creating jagged spikes. Mara jumped back, grabbing Cyril's arm. The gap closed quickly, spikes thrust upward, aimed at her feet. Cyril met Tavix's gaze. "This ends now," she said, calm but firm. She released a pulse of energy through the crystals binding the rebels. The glowing web shot toward Tavix, wrapping around him. He snarled, using his own force to break free. Sparks flew as his power clashed with Cyril's. The chamber trembled. Mara took advantage of the distraction. She dashed forward, sliding beneath Tavix's robes to strike at the control glyph on his wrist. He howled, stumbling. Cyril stepped in, placing both hands on Tavix's shoulders. The crystals around them sang, and Tavix's power drained into the walls. He sagged, defeated. With a final surge, the chamber stilled. The spikes retracted, and the pale torches relit at full strength. The rebel soldiers, still bound in crystal light, slumped as their restraint released them. Tavix collapsed to one knee, chest heaving. Cyril turned to Mara, concern in her dark eyes. "Are you well?" she asked quietly. Mara checked her comm badge's status lights. No wounds, just adrenaline. She gave Cyril a small nod. "I'm fine, thanks to you." She approached Tavix and offered him a hand. "Lord Tavix, it's over. Surrender, and no harm will come to you." Tavix's eyes flickered with bitterness before he accepted her hand. "I underestimated your bond," he admitted. "I thought fear would twist your loyalty." Cyril bowed her head. "Fear binds nothing. Only trust can hold us together." Mara contacted the flagship security network. "All clear here," she reported. "Rebels neutralized, prisoners secured." From her comm came the steady voice of the HFY guard captain. "Well done, Captain Hayes. I am sending a transport to escort the prisoners." Cyril exhaled, relief softening her features. She placed a hand on Mara's arm. "You stood with me when I needed you most." Her voice trembled with emotion. Mara looked into those deep, star-lit eyes and saw not a princess, but a companion. They exited the sealed wing together. As the spire's ancient doors slid shut behind them, Mara felt the weight of what they had accomplished. They had faced danger side by side, united against fear and violence. Ahead lay the next steps of their journey. Healing wounded trust, forging a new alliance, and perhaps in time, exploring the ritual Cyril feared so deeply. In the quiet corridor beyond, Mara and Cyril walked on, their footsteps echoing in harmony. Each carried scars of past battles, but together they held the promise of 2 worlds learning to stand as one. Captain Mara Hayes woke in a room bathed in silver light. She lay on a low stone bed in the moonlit sanctum, the soft glow of crystal, lanterns drifting like fireflies around her. Around the circular chamber, pale curtains of woven starlight hung between tall columns carved from white marble. A faint breeze stirred them, carrying the scent of night blossoms. Mara tried to sit, but a gentle hand pressed her back. Princess Cyril knelt by her side, concern in her dark eyes. "Rest, Captain," the princess whispered. "Your wound must be tended." Mara glanced down at her uniform. Where a crystal shard had grazed her side, the fabric was torn and a thin line of light pulsed beneath it. The pain was dull but insistent, as if a warm ember glowed under her skin. Cyril touched Mara's side with a soft pad of cloth. The light from the shard dimmed under her hand, and Mara felt warmth spread through her ribs. "Your strength wanes because that cut pierced my ship's crystal plating," Cyril explained. "A slow energy bleed seeps into your suit. Only the ritual can heal it fully." Mara's heart beat faster. She remembered Cyril's words about the merging ritual, how it bound two lives in one shared current of energy. To save her, Cyril would offer part of her own life force. Mara thought of her crew, her home, and the fragile peace they protected. "If I refuse," she asked quietly, "can you save me in another way?" Cyril closed her eyes and shook her head. "I have no mortal prescriptions for this kind of wound. Only the symbiosis can restore balance." She reached for a small crystal vessel on the bedside table. Inside, a pale blue liquid shimmered. "This is the elixir of unity. It prepares us for the bond." Mara drew a slow breath. She feared losing herself, but she refused to leave the princess alone with such power coursing through her. She sat up, her back trembling. "Then let us proceed," she said. "Tandand, together." Cyril helped Mara stand. They moved toward the center of the sanctum, where a circular glyph of interlocking rings was set into the floor. Silver dust sparkled in the grooves. Cyril poured the elixir into 2 cups carved from moonstone. The liquid gleamed like captured starlight. Mara lifted her cup and met Cyril's gaze. The princess's eyes looked both fierce and tender. "We speak vows," Cyril said softly. "We pledge our hearts and our spirits, that one may heal the other." Mara nodded, unsure if words came easily in that moment. She drank, the cool liquid soothing her throat. A gentle pulse spread through her chest and she felt a soft tingle in her fingertips. Cyril drank as well, and when the cups clinked on the floor, the glyphs in the stone began to glow. A low hum rose in the air. The columns of the sanctum vibrated, and the curtains of starlight fluttered as if caught in a gentle wind. Mara reached out and Cyril took her hand. Their palms met over the glowing rings. Energy surged between them in a ribbon of pale light. Mara felt herself drawn toward the princess as if she floated on a current of warmth. Images unfolded in her mind, moments of Cyril's childhood, laughter with her siblings, the heavy sorrow of her ancestors' sacrifice. Mara trembled, swept by Cyril's memories, yet held steady by her own will. Cyril's voice echoed inside her mind like a distant bell. "Be strong. Trust me." Mara clung to those words. She let Cyril's life force fill the wound in her side with gentle light. The pain receded, and warmth settled in her chest. At the same time, Mara felt her own spirit reach out to Cyril. She offered moments of her home on earth, the taste of fresh rain, the sound of children's laughter, the fierce pride of soldiers, standing shoulder to shoulder. Cyril's eyes glowed brighter, and a soft smile curved her lips. The hum reached a crescendo. Light flared, then faded to a gentle glow. The glyphs dimmed, and the hum ceased. Mara and Cyril stood breathing in unison. Hands still joined. Mara looked down at her side. Her uniform was whole, the torn fabric mended as if healed from within. Cyril's cheeks were pale and her shoulders slumped with relief. Mara slid her free hand to the princess's arm. "Are you all right?" she whispered. Cyril nodded, though her eyes glistened. "I feel more connected than ever, and yet I remain myself." She slid her hand into Mara's, squeezing gently. "You have given me balance, Captain. I am stronger for it." Mara stepped closer, feeling the bond between them, a subtle resonance in her thoughts. She realized that their lives were no longer separate. Their hope and courage flowed together, creating a unity that could heal worlds. In the hush of the moonlit sanctum, soldier and princess stood side by side, two souls entwined, ready to face whatever dawn might bring. Princess Cyril and Captain Mara Hayes stepped onto the observation deck of the royal flagship, gazing out at the twin suns rising over Avery Prime and Earth's moon in the distance. The sky was painted in pastel hues of pink and gold, and the gentle curve of both worlds hung side by side like jewels in the firmament. Cyril's hand hovered near the console, where the ancient crown of her ancestor lay in a protective case. The crown had shattered during the merging ritual, and beyond it a pale wraith now stirred, a restless echo of the princess's long-lost forebear. Mara watched Cyril's reflection in the case's glass. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Cyril turned, her dark eyes steady. "I must face her," she said. "Only then can I claim this crown and seal our bond." Mara inclined her head. "I will stand with you." Together they opened the case. A soft wind blew through the deck, though no window was open. The shattered gems of the crown lifted off their velvet cushion and floated in a spiral of pale light. Then from the fragments emerged a tall, sorrowful spirit, hollowed eyes filled with longing and grief. The wraith's voice echoed in both their minds. "I was devoured by love and duty. I am bound to sorrow." Cyril stepped forward, her voice calm. "Ancestor, I carry your sacrifice and your pain, but I will not let your sorrow bind me. I stand for life and hope." The wraith's form flickered, shifting between anguish and anger. Mara spoke next, his voice strong yet gentle. "We honor her choice, we honor her love. But life is more than duty. It is union and understanding." Together they raised their joined hands toward the spirit. Cyril shared her memories of the ritual, the fear, the warmth, the promise of unity. Mara offered his own. Earth's sunrise, laughter among friends, the quiet comfort of shared stories by a campfire. The wraith trembled as these new threads wove into her being. Light pulsed around the deck in gentle waves. Gently the spirit smiled for the first time in centuries. The hollow eyes filled with tears of relief. "I am free," she whispered. And as she spoke, the crown's gems reassembled above Cyril's head, lifting themselves into place with a soft chime like ringing bells. The ancestral curse dissolved in that single moment, leaving only peace. Cyril placed the crown upon her brow. It settled like a second skin, warm and glowing. She turned to Mara, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, voice full of wonder. "Together we have laid old ghosts to rest." Mara offered a gentle bow. It was our honor. Days later, in the grand forum orbiting both homeworlds, Cyril and Mara stood before delegates from Earth and Avery alike. The walls were draped with banners of blue and silver, and millions watched on holographic screens. Cyril spoke first, her new crown gleaming like starlight. "We have walked through fear and unity," she declared. "Today, we bind our worlds in peace." Mara joined her at the podium. "Our bond is proof that understanding and trust can overcome any divide. Let this treaty be the first of many bridges between humanity and the Avery." As they signed the treaty, the assembly erupted in applause, echoes of hope traveling across light years. When the ceremony ended, Cyril and Mara lingered at the observation window. Below them, both worlds turned in silent grace. Cyril rested her head on Mara's shoulder. "What comes next?" she asked. Mara smiled, watching the stars begin to brighten. "A future we build together, one step at a time." In that moment, soldier and princess became partners in a new dawn, a dawn where two worlds learned that to truly unite, they must first open their hearts. And in the quiet glow of shared hope, they stood side by side, ready for all that lay ahead.